Well, with partnerships, the partnership is deemed kind of more of a special relationship. You choose a partner because you find that someone has a certain skill or personality that you need. One person may be very good at, the technical side. The other person may be really good at rainmaking or bringing in prospects. And, anytime you're in any type of business, particularly internet business, you're going to have some folks that are technically savvy. You have other folks that are better at bringing in clients or coming up with marketing ideas. And so there is a marriage there between the two parties. Well, because partnerships are generally smaller and there's a much more intimate relationship that's deemed by the law, there's not that ability for someone to come in and seize the partnership interest. That's because you choose to do business with one person, and the laws of each state protect that right. So even though somebody may obtain a judgment against your business or against an individual in the business, they cannot come in and they cannot take that person's ownership interest in the business, okay? So if I go do business with a friend of mine and we both are members of the LLC, and let's say he gets in a situation personally, he's driving his family to amusement parks, he hits somebody, there's a $500,000 debt out there, that creditor cannot come in and crack open my LLC and say, hey, guess what, guys? I, the creditor, am your new LLC member or the new partner. You can't do that because there's a charging order protection, which means that individual can only try to get any money that may be distributed out of the LLC to my friend, but he can't come in, can't disrupt operations, certainly can't open it up and pierce it and get in. Now, if it was a corporation, totally different ballgame. And you guys can summarize this any way you want. I'm sorry. If you want me to do a shorter explanation, I will.
That's fine. I think we're going to we'll probably end up making this into 2 interviews. What do you think, Jay?
Yeah,
we'll do a part 1 and part 2.
Yeah, that sounds good. Well, I mean, it's a lot of good information. It's definitely stuff. I mean, I'm already, taking note on a couple things that it's good for me to know. So
I know, and then we start getting into there's a lot of other stuff I'd like to talk about too, about buyback agreements and buyout agreements and all that kind of stuff too. That I'll kind of work in, and you guys can do what you want with it, but it's pretty important.
I learned, a couple of years ago, I read as much as I could about LLCs and stuff, and then I actually went to an attorney of a friend of the family who told me about the LLC and explained some of this stuff basically. But even with all that I read and thought I knew, stuff you've said today I totally didn't know. And luckily I was directed correctly as far as having the LLC and stuff, but there was a lot of that stuff that I had no clue about. And what we wanted to do for our people is, we want them to have the benefit of learning more than what we knew, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
They shouldn't have to go through what we went through. That's what we're trying to do for them.
Well, that's the reason I do this, because there's so much that all of us went through. I think that's why we're in this, that you just say it shouldn't be that way. Well, let me just summarize and say that generally the LLC can use the exact same tax treatment as a corporation, or it can choose its own tax treatment. And for most small business owners that are starting out, tax treatment under what's called Subchapter S, or an LLC tax under Subchapter S, is going to allow you to minimize that self-employment tax and allow you to maximize the profitability of your business. The second thing is the LLC has some very powerful asset protection benefits. The first, of course, being that it requires less formality to run. Less formality, less meetings, less protocol means less mistakes. And the reason that's important is if you're ever sued and your web business is involved in a suit, one of the first things that the attorney who is bringing this will try to do is to try to sue you as an individual as well. And they are going to bank on the idea or the possibility that you did not run your company correctly. And if they can prove that, they can go through you and the LLC, and now they have 2 sources of funds. What they necessarily don't want is an LLC that's going to stand up, or a business, and it's going to stand up because then they can only go to whatever assets are in the company. So running it's important. Less formality means less mistakes, and that's good because those mistakes are things that if anything is ever brought to court, those would come out and they could cause you to lose that protection. And I can tell you a lot of stories about that, but let me just say that the folks that go, and if you go and you have an attorney set up an LLC for you, or you have sort of like an instant LLC created, if you don't know how to run the entity and you don't have information on some of the formalities and the absolute steps that you have to do right after you form it, that first meeting, what you need to do, what controls you need to put into place, then if you are ever sued or it's ever called into question, basically you're going to be in big trouble. And that is one of the key reasons why the information on this stuff is so important. I mean, you can go anywhere and find someone who can set up an LLC, and they set it up for you. They charge you $600, and then you're done. But it's like having a fancy Ferrari that you buy and you spend all this money on, and nobody tells you how to run it or how to maintain it. So you go drive it around and you have no oil in the crankcase. What's going to happen?
Yeah, it's done.
Kaboom, it's done. And that's what happens with business entities. There's a lot out there to set them up. There's a lot of people that are dying to do it for you because it's quick money. It's pretty easy to do. It's about as easy as filling out a driver's license application or job application or anything else. It is not hard. And if the attorney can make $600-$700 on that, woo, great. But what they don't do generally is show you how to run it. And that can take hours and hours and hours of attorney fees, which at $200 to $150 an hour, it gets costly. But that's what I wanted to say about that.
Great. Well, now as we're making sure we're doing this correctly, how careful do Internet entrepreneurs need to be about checking the availability of their desired business name?
This is a great
right.
Yeah, this is a great question. And the example I gave you regarding the gentleman that called me this week, I mean, it's amazing some of the stuff I get. I get people call me and tell me all sorts of things, and it's sort of like I squint my eyes and I go, oh, God, don't tell me they didn't do that. And one of these individuals, it was a situation where the attorney had filed the paperwork, but they had never checked for any other trademarks. And, that's just a huge issue. You want to be sure that the business name that you choose does not have any trademark issues, meaning it's not been registered as a trademark. What most people think is, well, I'm going to set up a business. Let me make sure the name is available. And so they come up with this snazzy name, Starbucks coffee. Great, it's available. There's no Starbucks in Alaska, and I'm filing in Alaska. There probably is one, but let's say it was Starbucks. No, there's no Starbucks on file in Alaska. Great. The corporation divisions will let me file my LLC name as Starbucks. Well, guess what? Could there be a Starbucks somewhere doing business in the United States under that name, or a company with the name Starbucks? Well, yeah, we all know there is. So, whether or not the Secretary of State, that's the entity that you file your LLC paperwork with, whether or not the Secretary of State will approve it or not does not mean that you've done an adequate name search. I mean, that's kind of the first level. The trademark issue is a big one, and most folks who are doing any sort of Internet business as well have to think about that, because the domain name is similar in that, let's say a domain name is available. Okay, you go to Name Select or one of these others, and you say, okay, let me see if ABC Flowers is available. Oh, great, it's available. I'm going to do it. That's how I'll do my business, under abcflowers.com. Well, guess what? There could be an ABC Flowers that's doing business that's using that as a trademark. Just because the domain name's available doesn't mean it's trademark protected. One of the things that we've done in this program that's really neat, that will help folks who are also trying to determine if their domain name is a trademark, is we go through all the nuances of trademark searches, because whether you're setting up an LLC, corporation, or you're setting up a domain name for your website and trying to choose one, you're going to need to search the federal trademark database, and you're going to have to know how to do that. And we've spent time going through that because it is very important.